Warning. The following is an honest movie review. And the producers of the I Remember Liking That Movie podcast are not responsible for destroying any fond memories that you might have had of the following film.
Lights, camera, and action. Welcome to the I Remember Liking That Movie podcast. Remember those childhood movies you loved? We're going to watch them again and find out if they're still as amazing as you remember. Let's get ready to join Anna and Jimmy as they go back and watch those movies you remember being oh so awesomely good. Horror movies that scared. Comedy movies that dared.
Damn!
And action movies so preposterously ludicrous that they defied the laws of common sense. Now, here's your hosts, Anna Santos and Jimmy Coates.
Okay, it is August 10th, 1984, and Red Dawn is premiering in 1,822 theaters, which is a lot for 1984. That seems like a lot of theaters for 1984.
It is a lot of theaters for 1984.
Yeah, and I have no evidence to support this, but I believe Red Dawn has been the number one movie for 52 weeks in the Ukraine.
I believe it. I 100% believe it.
Red Dawn did open at number one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you remember about the 1984 version?
I remember it was a decent action movie that doubled as a romance, that tripled as a coming-of-age story. Like, it really was... I remember I loved it. I remember loving it. God, please tell me it doesn't suck. But I remember loving it. And I remember it was it was one of those movies everybody could watch because there was something in it for everybody.
Yeah.
Good performances. I could be wrong about that, but I liked it.
Me and my friends watched this movie a lot. These were kids hiding in the hills and wreaking havoc on an invading army. It was like, yeah, we could so do this. I mean, we couldn't. I couldn't now. But like every other kid from then to now, you could easily buy into it and root for the characters. Like it wasn't realistic, of course. I won't even go into the whole logistics of an army trying to occupy the United States. But it looked freaking cool. And I remember the characters. Yeah, I remember caring about the characters. I remember getting sad when the characters got killed.
I think I cried.
Yeah, and every time I watched it, I cared.
Yeah, I did watch it quite a few times over the years. They don't play it as often on TV anymore.
No.
Which is why I haven't seen it in a long time. But I remember every time it was on, I'd be like, oh, Red Dawn. And I'd kind of leave it on the TV while I did other stuff and then like pause every once in a while.
Yeah. And because it didn't have a happy ending. I mean, it did, but not for the characters we were watching.
Yeah. No, because it doesn't have a completion to the story. It was just, I think it's one of those movies that leaves an opening for a sequel.
Yeah, they should have made a sequel.
Right? But I think they didn't because the Cold War ended. When did that end? 88 or something? Anyways.
90 something.
90
when
something.
the Berlin Wall came down and all that, and
Holy
USSR
shit.
split up.
That wasn't oh God, that feels so long ago.
And I remember it having a pretty decent story. And back then, not saying they don't do it now, but back then, like, visual effects were limited, action was expensive. So you did, if you really wanted a good movie, you had to have a bit of a story to go with it.
No, I remember that, like, because you end up caring about the characters and you get invested in it. And there isn't any part, like, of course, the overall concept of an invasion of the United States by Russians. That's a little out there, but it was, like, the story itself made sense. Like, I don't remember ever having a moment of, that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, because I believe there's a bit of a prologue or a voice. I don't know if it's a voiceover or just some words across the screen that kind of gives you a bit of information right from the hop. But there is there is world building in this. I remember there being world building. I could be completely wrong.
We could be thinking of a whole nother movie.
Yeah. And that's why I love series so much now. Like, you get the best of both worlds now. You get kick-ass movies, but series are able to have like special effects and great stories and more episodes. But this was an action movie with a serious tone. I remember it being well acted, like you said.
Yeah.
I remember the action being awesome.
Yeah. God, I hope we're not wrong.
And in 1984, the cast was awesome.
Star-studded cast.
Yeah, I'm sure they weren't as well known in 84, but by the time me and my friends were watching it, they were, like Patrick Swayze, Charlie Sheen, C. Thomas Howell, Dirty Dancing, Jennifer Grey, Lee Thompson, Harry Dean Stanton, and Powers Booth. Well, those two guys I really didn't care about them at that point, but I remember seeing them in lots of stuff.
Yeah. It was a great cast. It was a super great cast.
Yeah. There we go.
It's working.
That means tail of the tape. Okay, so Red Dawn, 1984, is rated PG-13. I believe now it might be TV-14. And comes in fighting at a hefty, for an action movie, 1 hour and 54 minutes. Again, like we said, we remember there being story. And when you're going to kill off your entire cast, you want your audience to care. This is not one action hero who has to save his family or the country or the world. It's a whole cast, an ensemble. So now I'm going to bring up, there's the poster for Red Dawn.
That's right. They parachute in.
Yeah. This is the one I remember, and it's the small town in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the VHS.
Ah, yes.
The other one, so much better. But they're trying to sell. I think by the time this came out, because movies did not appear in rental stores very quickly in 1984. I don't even know what rental stores were around in 1984.
I think Blockbuster was around, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe. Not everywhere,
I know
though.
little mom and pop shops places were.
Yes.
It was mostly mom and pop, like video rental stores. But at this point, you're advertising the two heartthrobs.
Yeah, who by the time this came out, I'm guessing Dirty Dancing and Charlie Sheen wasn't too well known. I mean, like...
Well, he was in Lucas, which was huge for him.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. No, I'm talking about the Coke and the Horse.
Oh, no, the Coke and the Horse came...
The
well,
movies?
I mean, he might have been doing Coke and Horse at this time, but it was on the down low.
But Young Guns would have been out. Lucas would have been out. Stuff like that, yeah. And Charlie Sheen made a lot of great... Well, a lot of 80s movies.
No, he made a lot of really, really great movies.
Yeah.
And then he started doing a lot of Coke and Horse.
With that tiger blood.
Winning! I was like, what are you winning at, sir? What are you winning at?
Okay, so the taglines. There are a few here. In America, heroes aren't raised, they're orphaned. The one on the poster for the movies, not the VHS copy, is in our time, no foreign army has ever occupied American soil until now. The invading armies plan for everything except for 8 kids called the Wolverines. And then at 8:44 a.m., a full-scale military invasion by foreign troops begins. Total surprise, almost total success. The next day, a gang of high school kids become our last line of defense. That is a long tagline.
It really
That's
is.
a fucking synopsis.
But it encompasses everything.
Yeah. Okay, so our synopsis for 1984 Red Dawn is, in an alternate 1980s, the United States stands alone as communism grows stronger. When Soviet soldiers invade a small Colorado town, brothers Jed, Patrick Swayze, and Matt Eckert, Charlie Sheen, escape with friends to the forest. With their father, Tom, Harry Dean Stanton, a prisoner of the invading army, the children decide to fight against the Soviets. As the country comes under increasing attack, the group teams up with Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Tanner, Powers Booth to take back their town. That's right. It is an alternate. I think that's part of the beginning where they say Russian communism has spread across the world. The United Nations has disbanded and stuff like that. So it's very grim.
Okay. When you mentioned the Republicans and the conservative views, I was like, okay, I guess, because Russia. But then I understood, like, it really does feel very much like a fear-mongering thing where it's like, well, if you're not careful, this is where we're headed. Yeah. Communism and socialism is bad. Capitalism reigns supreme. Yay. Yeah.
Fucking commies. And it probably, I'm guessing back in 84, what probably was not a hard sell. I mean, they voted like...
Reagan was the president, right?
Yeah, in 84, I believe, yeah. Now, reviews. Rotten Tomatoes has 27 critics, giving it a score of 52%, with an audience score from 25,000 plus of 65%. So this is definitely the case of the audience liking a lot more than critics. IMDb,
not surprising.
No. IMDb has it with 59,000 user ratings, give it 6.3 out of 10. So kind of in line with Rotten Tomatoes. The critic consensus was, because it's at 52, an appealing ensemble of young stars will have some audience rooting for the Wolverines. But Red Dawn's self-seriousness can never conceal the silliness of its alarmist concept. A couple of my favorite ones. The Smartest, Dumbest Movie of 1984. One was, Come On, the Dirty Dozen meets the Breakfast Club. That's just awesome.
I mean, accurate.
Certainly a silly conservative-leaning product of its decade, but one that still holds cachet as a fun and exciting bit of escapism. Okay, so now we will watch the trailer. So what are our predictions for Red Dawn 1984?
I think it'll have a solid cheese factor, but still be fun.
Yeah, I'm not looking for anything deep here, especially seeing the preview.
Yep.
But I'm just looking for fun 80s action.
Yeah, man.
Doesn't have to be
I think
smart.
It'll deliver.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Doesn't have to be realistic action. I want an over-top amount of a slew, an abundance, a plethora of guns blazing, bullets flying, shit blowing up.
Well, of course you're going to have that. Let's not pretend, okay? That's totally going to happen.
I know. We saw a bunch of it in the trailer.
Right? I'm just hoping it's not so cheesy that it kind of ruins the action for you.
Well, I wouldn't mind a couple one-liners. You don't have to overdo it.
Because I think there's that like cheesy greatness moment where you're like, that's just enough cheese to make this great. And then there's that ugly cheese amount where you're just like, you've ruined it. But then there's also the cheese where it's so much that you can't help but just love it. Because you're like, this is just cheese. I'm really hoping it hits that sweet spot where it's like, this is good cheese. Just enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Just need, and have to have an American flag flying very subtly in the background.
Of course.
At least one or two times at appropriate times. Appropriate times, like Russians getting blowed up real good. No, this isn't a politically motivated speech. This is watching a pro-American 1984 anti-communist action movie by watching that trailer.
Correct.
But you have to remember too, it's not as scary as it once seemed. Like in the 80s, whether plausible or not, people actually thought it was a possibility.
Oh, yeah.
Reagan was president. Russia was showing off his nuclear arsenal, and Reagan was talking about Star Wars. And if you aren't familiar with that little history tidbit, people, it's exactly like it sounds. He wanted to build a Star Wars like Death Star, as in a giant fucking satellite that would shoot nukes out of the air, preferably over the USSR, but with lasers. Yes, lasers, like pew, 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 pew. Do you remember that at all? That whole Star Wars?
Okay. I don't remember it from the time because obvi. I was like 4 years old, ish. However, I know later on in life, you start learning about politics and stuff, and you start learning about the Cold War, and then you hear about this whole crap, and you're just like, Jesus.
Yeah, he was on TV actually talking about it.
You have a moment where you're like, this is where you're showing that you were an actor, you know?
Yeah.
Like, just because you write a script for it doesn't make it real.
No, I don't know if he brought up the pieces of paper with his crayon drawings on it, but that's what he was wanting to do.
Oh, God.
But I mean, the Russian invasion of Ukraine can finally put that to rest, at least from a military invasion standpoint. Like, the Russians ran out of gas on their way to Kiev and had to abandon their entire armored fleet. And they're like the second or third biggest oil and gas exporter in the world.
Yeah.
And they share a border with Ukraine, and they ran out of gas. Yeah. Not too worried about a foreign army landing on the coast.
Yeah, but I am a little concerned that Putin's just,
he does have a lot of nuclear weapons.
Right?
Okay, I think you're right. I think I am going to like it. There's definitely going to be some cheese factor. Mm-hmm. But looks like there's a lot of bullets, a lot of explosions.
Which is always a good time.
Yeah. And you got to remember 80s action.
Yeah.
And with that being said,
you heard them. Movie time. Let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves a treat, and then watch a classic kick-ass movie from whenever the one we're about to watch was made.
And now, on with the show.
okay, so welcome back. We have both watched, so let's dive in. Red Dawn, your initial thoughts?
So good. A little overacted, like, let's be real, a little bit. But overall, very enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, Patrick Swayze cried a lot.
Can I tell you how many times I saw tears? And I was like, dude, the makeup artist literally just walked up to you guys and was like, ping, 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 ping. You're crying now. Go.
Yeah. I think Patrick Swayze is one of those actors that can cry on cue.
Yeah, C. Thomas Howell and the annoying kid that played Danny. Both of them, both of them are supposed to have like tortured faces. But I was like, I see the tears, but your eyes are not making them. They're just hanging out on your face.
Yeah. Patrick looked authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, first, even having seen this movie dozens of times, it was familiar and still surprising. When I watched it, since the last time, I bought the special edition. Oh, yeah, because I didn't have it last time.
Fancy.
But I bought the special edition 11 or 12 years ago. And I think I bought it because 2012 was announced. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Red Dawn. And so I bought that. And although I saw a few mistakes, a couple of head scratchers, I love this movie. It brought back a part of my childhood, a childhood when the only good commie was a dead commie. Even though we didn't really know what a commie was.
I was going to say.
And you could yell Wolverine in the playground, and kids knew what you were talking about. Sure, a bigger kid would come by and gut punch you while he was telling you you're too much of a puss to be a Wolverine, but totally worth it.
Amazing.
And there was story, in hindsight, a silly story, but it was there. There was story building. The violence started immediately, but they were able to piece together a far-fetched, but still a story.
Yep.
That made sense. An asterisk beside that, but it made you care.
No, I actually cared about the characters in this, which
Yeah.
I was like, really, I was like, oh, like I felt suspense and I felt tension at times and I was afraid for them. And I was like, I'm emotionally involved. What is happening?
Which is a weird for a movie that old.
Right?
But maybe it's not weird because it's happened more often than not. So let's go through 1984's Red Dawn. In an alternate 1980s, the United States of America is strategically isolated after NATO is disbanded. At the same time, the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact allies aggressively expand. I had to remember this is 1984. I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? And I'm like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah, they okay, before we continue, I just want to point out that if you are illiterate or if you do not read fairly quickly,
yeah, it was pretty quick.
There was a lot of like subtitles and writing in this.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who's not comfortable with that on the screen, this movie sucks right from the start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thankfully I'm cool with it, so
yeah, no, it was great. It was a neat way that they did it, where it was because of Russia had to do it because Ukraine, who was part of Russia at the time, had the wheat drought, so they had to expand and do something, or they were in trouble. And yeah, no, I thought it was quite clever. In addition, yeah, the Ukrainian wheat harvest fails while a socialist coup d'etat occurs in Mexico. And like I said, yeah, we have to remember that it was the CCCP, the Soviet Union, not just Russia. It was a lot of countries. And as I was doing some research, we have to remember 7 presidents from 1961 into the 80s thought about invading Cuba directly or indirectly. And there were assassination attempts, the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis. So it wasn't, in 1984, a Cuban invasion, although far-fetched, but backed by the Soviet Union, was sellable, even from from a popcorn ticket selling standpoint.
yeah, it was definitely the communists uniting.
Yeah. In September, in the town of Calumet, Colorado, a local high school teacher pauses upon seeing Soviet troops parachuting from Antonov's AN-12 transport aircrafts. Okay, we'll have to give credit to the Wikipedia plot outline. I couldn't tell an Antonov AN-12 from a 737. Like, I have no clue. But
All
yeah,
I thought was pretty parachutes. They look like silk. That was my thought.
And on the Wikipedia plot, it highlights every vehicle and weapon. And when you put your thing over and the picture pops up, it is it was those planes from the movie, and it was those tanks that were from the movie. So someone put a lot of thought into this plot.
Someone had a lot of time on their hands. Let's call it what it is.
And just before this happens, Jed drops Maddie and his buddy Danny off, making fun of them losing the football game. The teacher walks outside to question them, and they open fire, killing the teacher and several students. Pandemonium follows as students flee amid heavy gunfire. Jed Eckert, who had dropped his brother Matt off at the high school, returns to pick up him and several of their friends, narrowly escaping the chaos. This movie jumps right into the violence.
Yeah, no, they don't give you a lot of ramp up time. Like, they're straight into, they parachuted in and now we're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that, actually, because the little storyline that started it with all of the like subtitles and stuff, like, it told us where we were.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. You read that and then you're ready to jump right in.
Yeah, I wasted no time getting into it.
That's right.
Yeah, because it wasn't even 5 minutes.
No.
And there was a part, like, as they were heading out, they got like 2 or 3 kids in the back and they were heading out. There was this fenced area, which was weird because schools aren't regularly fenced in. And there was a Russian or Cuban soldier just past the last kid. I think it was Robert. And then there was a close-up of them picking him up, the kid jumping into the back, and then the wide shot again. And that soldier that was just there was gone. It's just little stuff like that I picked up, but it didn't take away from the movie.
No.
It's just a couple little things. In downtown Calumet, I'm butchering this town's name. Cuban, Nicaraguan, and Soviet troops begin imposing order after a hasty occupation. Cuban Colonel Ernesto Bella instructs the KGB to go to the local sporting goods stores and obtain the records of the store's gun sales. The ATF Form 4473. This is a very thorough plot line because I do remember him saying that or reading that. Yeah.
He's like, and everybody with a 4473. I was like, sir, why do you know about that?
To determine who owns firearms in the town and in the surrounding rural area. What I loved about this movie was that the enemy, the villains, quotations, they spent time with them. They weren't just there just for the good guys to shoot. They had a story, like as the occupation going on, like the movie visited them often.
Yeah, they weren't just caricatures of of villains. They were actual, like, you're like, oh, you don't want to be in the cold either?
Yeah.
I feel you, Holmes. Then eventually, like, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff where you're just like, oh, you're human. I get it.
Yeah, and it brought a depth to the movie that I forgot about. Brothers Jed and Matt Eckert, along with their friends Robert Morris, Danny, Daryl Bates, and Arturo Aardvark, flee into the wilderness after hastily equipping themselves at a gas station general store owned by Robert's father. Talk about lucky. The store had everything, and he was like, take all you can carry, forget perishable shit, take canned stuff, batteries. I would have went with them.
Well, I mean, I think they noticed if an adult that owned a store that had several guns went missing.
Yeah. No, my kid
with all of their guns.
What about mom? I'd be like, mind your business. Move over. The beginning, the one kid's father, Aardvark, calling out to his son as he was trying to catch up and get in the truck. Like he probably had a wife, and he was like, "Fuck her! If I can catch up this truck, I'm going."
That's the one thing I noticed about this movie. Everybody talks about the moms, but nobody sees the moms.
Sees the moms. There's a couple. Well,
who? There's the
ranch.
grandma.
The ranch.
That's a grandma.
Yeah, that's
She's not a mom.
No.
There's all talk about moms.
Yeah.
But we never see them.
We don't actually see them, no.
And then they just die.
At one point, they encounter a Soviet roadblock, but are saved by a U.S. Army UH-1 helicopter gunship. Again, I can't stress that this is not my plot line. I got it from the Wikipedia. Who is very hit and miss when it comes to movie plots, but this one, fantastic. After several weeks in the forest, they learn that Jed and Matt's father is being held in a re-education camp at the town's drive-in movie theater. What I don't think I realized from when I was younger, or even 12 years ago when I watched this movie for like the 35th time, like Jed, when he walks into that store, tells the store clerk she might have been a mom, that they called the station looking for their dad. So Mr. Eckert was a police officer, or if not the sheriff in this movie.
It looks like a sheriff's uniform, not a regular police officer. Because it took me a hot second when they went to visit the re-education center. I was like, oh, he's wearing his uniform.
Yeah. The kids visit. Oh, no, wait. Oh, they visit the camp and speaking to Mr. Eckert through the fence and learn that their mother is dead. Mr. Eckert reminds them he had purposely raised them in a strenuous manner. Reed beat the shit out of them when they weren't when they were acting out.
Correct.
Ordering them to avenge him. And can we just for a moment pay homage to the late Harry Dean Stanton? Mm-hmm. If you're listening or watching this, he is an actor who has been in way too many films to even list, but like Alien, Escape from New York, Kelly's Heroes, and now it's bugging me because
Pretty in Pink.
That's it, Pretty in Pink.
Yep.
And so on. But also the importance of having a kick-ass actor, even if it's just for the 5. He was only in there for 5. That speech was 5 minutes. He brought such weight to that performance and the movie itself that I wanted to avenge him.
Well, it's really funny because this is something I noted. And I think anybody who watches this movie can probably recognize it too. It feels like every actor in this movie wanted to like Stanislavski method actor it. And it feels like the director kept trying to pull soap opera performances out of them.
Yeah.
And you could see the struggle, but some of the actors were just like, nah, man, I'm going to do this right.
Yeah. There were some actors that you just don't tell.
Yeah. Or some of them, like even like C. Thomas Howell, when he had his quiet moments, they seemed more authentic.
Yeah.
When it was like the grandstanding kind of, and I was like, oh God, he made you do that like 10 times, didn't he? The director made you do that 10 times. So, I mean, there was something, but Henry Dean Stanton, like, even though he's doing this very dramatic avenge me, like monologue, you kind of want to avenge him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that big of a scene.
No. It's
you
small.
see him one more time and you don't hear him, but you just for a second. But
weirdly though, in that second time, they do a close up of him and then they go to a wide shot. In the wide shot, I was still watching him.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck everybody else.
I have that note. Like even his facial expression was awesome. But no, this scene was just like that's what a really, really good actor can bring to any movie.
I feel like
if you let them do their thing.
If you work with the actor as opposed to just trying to push them into giving you what you imagined. Yeah. Because there are times where I was like, it doesn't feel authentic. And then there were other times where I was like, oh, this is what you can do. Because this was a very talented cast. Yeah, it was really filled with talented actors who have proven their mettle like a million times. So whenever I would see that, I was like, oh, they made you go big with that, didn't they? But even like the guy that was like, he noticed, he didn't recognize Matt and Jed right away, but he said, oh, I know exactly where your father was. That was an actor. It wasn't you could tell, like even some of the Russians, and we'll get into that because they're coming, like a lot of them were actors. I think that's the difference from hiring actors and just hiring, I don't know, like non-actors or not very good ones, or I don't know. You can say it with me. Extras. Nepo babies. The I'm not trying to shit on extras, but yeah. No. Because I have friends who work as extras. Mm-hmm. And they're the like day in, day out, I'm on set all day. But anyways, let's continue on. The kids visit the Masons behind enemy lines in occupied America, where they learn Robert's father was executed for aiding guerrillas, providing guns to the boys from the store. The Masons asked Jed and Matt to take care of their granddaughters, Tony and Erica. Again, they were character actors, like the two older people, or they had some sort of acting experience because I believe them. Mm-hmm. Not Harry Dean Stanton good, but
putting decent actors really helped build this world.
Well, these are classic actors, like the guy who played Mr. Mason, the grandfather in the ranch. He had been doing Westerns for years.
Yes. Yep.
Like, he had a long career before this. So it's one of those things where you're just like, look at you pulling out like actual talented people with a resume for this action movie. Thank you.
Okay. After killing Soviet soldiers in the woods. Okay, first, the action hits immediately, and then the movie does something novel and tells a story and character builds and story. We are past 36-minute mark when they kill the Russian soldiers. And FYI, it is sloppy, and what seems it was done out of necessity because they were caught hiding. It wasn't planned or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Red Dawn 2012 hits 32-minute mark, and they are trained guerrillas already thwarting an invading army. So I'm just throwing that out there. Also, the movie brought a human side, like we already talked about this, like to the enemy, and they were just taking a drive, those Russian soldiers. They were like taking some selfies, posting on whatever Russian equivalent to Facebook was in 1984.
I believe that was the corkboard at work. That was that was Facebook back in the 80s.
But like the soldier in the car, because they shoot the one guy in the arrow and he's like screaming for help as he's trying to get away, and they shoot the other guy, and then the younger kid radioing for help, and Jed comes up on it, and he knows he's fucked. And he just turns his head because he knows he's about to get shot. The movie made them very human.
It did. It made them human. It gave them depth. So it really felt like a huge, like it was basically what war is. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, because like every good guy thinks the other one is the bad guy.
Yeah.
No matter who's fighting.
Yeah.
So, but we're all just people, and we're all just doing what the government tells us to do.
Yeah.
To go fight the things. Although, yes, we can all agree that, Germany kind of makes some bad decisions.
Yeah, the odd one.
Yeah, like twice. And then they were like, guys, we're retiring for forever. We're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was something I really liked, because this movie lets you dig deep into the people in it. So you know them. You know their quirks. You know their little personalities. They let you build time to like them, and also to feel bad for the Russians and the Cubans, because you're like, you're all going to die and you're doing this for nothing, and I feel bad for you, Holmes.
Yeah. The youth begin attacking the occupation forces, calling themselves Wolverines after the school mascot. The Soviets respond with reprisals, executing groups of civilians following every Wolverine attack. This is where you have to start being forgiving in this movie. Like, they had a lot of weaponry, the Wolverines. Mm-hmm. I get that they took it from different strikes that they conducted, but they had like those big 50 caliber machine gun turrets mounted on certain places. That would, like, how do you know where the soldiers were going to be exactly in that line of sight? How did you get it set up before they arrived? Like, did you use your horses? Did you bring it in with the horses, set everything up, take the horses back, walk back? I know it's stupid.
No, there are a lot of like logistical impossibilities in this movie.
Yeah.
Because a 16-year-old girl who doesn't power lift on the regular would never be able to operate that machine gun.
No, she'd be...
She'd have a broken clavicle, probably a dislocated shoulder. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going to suspend my disbelief, and I'm really going to believe deep in my heart that Jennifer Grey is really working that machine gun.
Yeah, because in reality, she would not be able to do that. I mean, you could give her a jug of milk and she can make a milkshake.
After going through basic training, maybe doing a little bit of strength training, sure, 100%. This wafy little girl who hasn't eaten for like a month or two has been living out in the forest, not taking a shower, wearing the exact same clothing. Nah, man, she's not doing it. Also, I want to know what kind of conditioner she uses, because her hair did not tangle, and I want to know how.
Yeah, just saying, if you think too hard, it'll take you out a bit. It's best not to think when watching this movie. The fathers of Jed, Matt, and Aardvark are killed in one of these executions. Daryl's father, Mayor Bates, tries to save the lives of the captured citizens by collaborating, but with little success. The reprisal attacks do not deter the Wolverines. And you, like you said, you just see Harry Dean Stanton, Mr. Eckert. He doesn't do anything. He just has a look on his face, and you feel for him. And then Aardvark's dad digging the hole and lining up to get shot. They all start singing the national anthem, except for Mr. Eckert, Jed and Maddie's dad. But just defiance and sadness in his face. Like, you can't put a price on an actor like that.
No, you can't. But my God, did they try?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can really. You can put a price on it.
I mean, Hollywood can put a price on everything. Which
and he probably didn't get paid a lot for it, but I don't know what
probably
he got
not
paid. No. But he was so worth having in this movie. The Wolverines meet American F-15 fighter pilot Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Tanner, shot down by the Cuban MiG-21s. Leah Thompson's character actually sees the plane get shot out of the air and follows it. He informs them of the current state of the war. Several American cities, including Washington, D.C., were destroyed by nuclear strikes. Strategic Air Command was crippled by Cuban saboteurs, and paratroopers were dropped from airliners to seize key positions in preparation for the main assaults via Mexico and Alaska. Most of southern United States and northwestern Canada are occupied by the Soviets, but American counterattacks have halted Soviet advances along the Rockies and Mississippi, and the lines have now stabilized. America's only foreign allies, China and the United Kingdom, remain active against the Soviets, but are military crippled. Yeah, in 1984, China, not a threat. They were buddies.
Well, buddies-ish.
Buddy-ish, yeah. Yeah, they're not blood brothers, but...
Yeah, no. They weren't like having sleepovers and braiding each other's hair. But I mean, they were like, dude, we can be at the same pizza party.
Yeah. And I love Powers Booth, Tombstone and Deadwood and all that. He died the same year Harry Dean Stanton did. In 2017.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was sad.
We're taking a moment.
Tanner assists the Wolverines in organizing raids. This draws the attention of Soviet General Bratchenko, who orders further reprisals against the civil population. The Wolverines' actions and reprisals lead to the high command on both sides of the war to know the name Wolverines. And the Soviet generals publicly state that the area may not be fight for much longer. Soon after visiting the front line, Tanner and Aardvark are killed in the crossfire of the tank battle. So Tanner was going to cross the front line to join back up with his company and free America, and he asked Jed to come with him. I don't know if he was inviting all of them. I assumed he was. Then the tank snuck up on them. That's right, folks. A 50-ton armored tank snuck up on them. But of course it did.
Tiptoed right behind them.
Steel Dawn himself was there. For anyone listening, we did an episode for a movie, Steel Dawn, which starred Patrick Swayze, who was a warrior of the future. What was it? He was carving out the future with his sword. And horrible dialogue. That's what he was carving out. But his character in that movie, for being the ultimate future warrior, got snuck up on a multitude amount of times.
So many times.
Yeah. Anyways, where are we? Yeah, so Tanner tries to distract the tanks to help the Wolverines escape. Aardvark goes with them and gets himself killed. I was pissed. I was pissed the first 34 times it happened, and I was pissed the 35th time that happened.
Tell us how you really feel. No, I was mad. I was so mad because I was like, dude, stay down. Like, I was pissed at him. I was like, oh, and then Tanner goes up, and I'm like, motherfucker, we lost Tanner because of you.
Yeah.
Mad. So mad.
And that's a big difference between the two movies. Daryl's caught by the Soviets after being turned in by his father. After torturing him, KGB officers forced Daryl to swallow a tracking device and release him to join the guerrillas. There's another small gripe. Did no one notice Daryl was gone all that time?
Apparently nobody did.
Did they like torture him for an hour?
Apparently they just looked at him sternly and he was like, okay, I'll swallow your tracking device. Although I do like the technology, the tracker technology.
Yeah, that was straight out of
like a
Aliens.
Geiger meter, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. 1984, yo.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and no one questioned when he finally got back, like, where did you go? You don't seem like yourself. What's with all those torture-like scars all over your body? Like, nothing.
For reals, I think they just tickled him, and that was his torture.
Yeah. He seemed like a bit of a wuss. A Spetsnaz unit is sent into the mountains carrying portable radio triangulation equipment, but are ambushed by the Wolverines. The group traces the source of the signal to Daryl, who confesses, pleading for mercy. They also keep a prisoner. Again, the prisoner, he's just a kid like them.
Yeah.
And that's again, like you said, the depth of making him human. Like he was saying, call me your friend so we don't have to die alone. And I was like, oh, ouch.
Well, I was like, well, shit, that's poetic.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And then the guy's like, why would I be your... I'm like, give him a friend. You're both going to die. It's fine. But I think at that point, Daryl still really believed he was going to live.
Yes.
Fool.
Yeah.
Because at this point, C. Thomas Howell, Robert, had already gone off the deep end. He was like kill hungry. So I'm like,
yes.
I don't know what you think is going to happen, sir.
And of course, Patrick Swayze was crying again.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
This entire escapade took an emotional toll on Patrick Swayze.
I don't know how he wasn't dehydrated most of the time. He is executed by a hardened, actually even the thing says, the plot, by a hardened Robert, and Jed executes a Spetsnaz operative as the others cannot kill their friend. We can agree that, we like you said, he was on his way out back around the time he found out his parents were killed.
Yeah, right after he found out his parents were killed, he went hard. And you saw a change in the character. Like, not so much that everybody was like, there's something wrong with Robert, but enough that you're like, he's killing pretty easily.
Yeah, no one was waking up and he was just staring at them at night or anything. But yeah, you could definitely tell.
but he wasn't exactly pausing before he had to kill people.
No, he was. Yeah,
he was not taking a moment after he was done killing them. He was just like, cool, let's go have a sandwich.
Yeah, he was all for it. But it had to be done. Daryl had to go. Yeah, no one else wanted to put on the big boy pants, so Robert did.
Yep.
The remaining Wolverines are ambushed by a Mi-24 helicopter gunship, and Tony and Robert are killed. Okay, first the plot goes into an inordinate amount of details about weapons and vehicles, and then gloss over a couple of the main characters getting killed.
Well, there's nothing really to say other than Robert lost his goddamn mind.
Yeah.
And was like, hey there, Russian Cuban guys. Let's have a shootout. Me with my little gun, you with your big guns on your helicopters. And he's yelling out, Wolverines! And I'm like,
that was an awesome scene, though. And the whole stalking Russians, the boxes fall off the back of the truck full of food. That was a Bush League mistake. Like, that's one of the oldest tricks.
Really, really was. Like, the food's just laying there. Fresh fruit. Fresh fruit is laying there.
Yeah.
Like, these are not MREs. These are like, it's fresh fruit and Cheerios. And I'm like, are you stupid? That's a trap. Someone was in the back of that truck and pushed the box off.
Yeah.
And they probably did it at like 2-mile intervals for the entire road.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if we go back, that whole scene, which were one of the many featuring the enemy, they bring in that Russian heavy who gives them shit for killing civilians.
Yes.
He's like, what did he say? I wrote it down here. If a fox kills your chickens, you don't kill the family pig because he saw the fox.
Correct.
I don't think he said family pig, but I love that this movie took you to that side of the story so much, not just the kids. Back to the gunships. As a kid, that was, I remember as a kid that death of him just putting up his thing and shooting, yelling out Wolverine. It wasn't as cool this time. It would, like you said, it was a little more stupid.
Well, and this is something I've noticed partially about this movie in particular. Not so much in the newer version. They don't know how to take cover.
No. But they're not soldiers either.
I know how to take cover. I'm not a soldier.
Yeah, if someone's shooting at me, I know.
You hide behind something solid. It's not hard. But everybody is like, I'm going to stand next to the rock. I'm going to stand next to the tree. I'm going to look above this log. I'm like, what? You all deserve to die.
I think when he shot the one helicopter with the rocket, he had a sense of, I'm indestructible.
I think he had that sense of, I'm indestructible. Or it's
way before
almost a
that,
death wish, where he's like, it doesn't matter if I die.
Yeah.
And my only complaint about that is, yes, but you're making it more difficult for everybody else that you're running with, the rest of the Wolverines.
Yeah.
Because you guys are not exactly recruiting right now.
No. And as a kid, I knew the movie wouldn't change, but every time I watched it, I wish it would.
Well, I guess.
And Tony asked Jed to kill her, and he can't. He cries again. She's like, that's okay. What did she say? Leave me your grenade, and I'll just listen to the wind for a while. And he's like, okay. And he cries again.
Tony's a real one for that.
Yeah, and he's like, bye, Tony. And she's like, bye, Jed. I'll see you in Dirty Dancing in a couple of years. He's like, okay. And again, the enemy point of view, when the Russians land, one of the Russian estimates that they killed 12 Wolverines. And that main hunter colonel guy's like, I saw one.
Yeah.
And the other guy's, well, they obviously carried off their dead. But he wasn't having anything.
And then literally like 10 seconds later, they find Tony's body.
And one of the soldiers blows up.
Yes. Because I was like, even when they're dead, they're still taking you out.
Yeah. And that actor, the Russian, is named William Smith, looked very familiar. He has done 276 movies and TV shows, from big movies to B movies. And so he's been in a lot. When I look, I'm like, I know that guy. Not just from Red Dawn.
No, but you always have that face.
Lot.
There are actors who have that face where you're just like, wait a second.
Now, Jed and Matt attacked the Soviet headquarters in Kalamut to distract the troops while Danny and Eric escape. I forgot Danny and Erica get away. We thought Jed might have gotten away in the pre-watch. I totally forgot Danny and Erica get away. I saw this movie so many times, and
Period. I forgot about them.
But it looks like Jed did not get away at all. He got shot.
Mm-hmm.
They kill a bunch of soldiers. They kill the colonel, the hunter guy, but he gets both Matt and Jed. That was a great scene after Commander Bella writes that letter and then catches. It was a little, I don't want to say soap opera-ish.
Say it with me now. It was a little dramatic.
It was a little dramatic. I appreciated it, but
it worked. It actually moved the story along.
Yeah.
So it was part of the character development. You know, what am I fighting for? You know, why am I here? I don't want to be here. I shouldn't be here. And I'm like, beautiful. So then you start seeing the turn of, you know, the villains, and you're like, this is a redemption story. It starts the redemption story. So when he comes upon Matt and Jed, who are already shot.
Yeah.
Matt's probably already dead.
Yeah.
Jed's holding on to him, talking nonsense, bleeding out. And the guy's just like, I don't need to have your moment.
Yeah.
Sit on the bench with your brother. I'm good. And he just like walks away. And I'm like, it's fucking beautiful. Thanks, man.
But he could have said all that with like a buddy. He could have been like, I'm done. I'm going back to my wife. I'm not.
He could have, but that is not as Young and the Restless as narrating the letter you're writing.
Yeah, yeah. And then you go back to the playground where their dad had said he watched them play back in the beginning. Jed says Dad will be there soon to get them and cries for the 18th time in this movie. The plan works, but both Jed and Matt are both mortally wounded. Colonel Bella soon finds Jed carrying... Okay, I'm reading the plot again, sorry. Jed carrying a wounded Matt and holds him at gunpoint. Despite being enemies, Bella lets the boys go as he is unwilling to murder children. The brothers reach a bench in the park holding each other as they die. Meanwhile, Danny and Erica trek through the Rocky Mountain wilderness, reaching the frontier of the free America. In the closing scene, a plaque is seen with Partisan Rock in the background. It is fenced off and an American flag flies nearby, implying the United States won the war. The plaque reads, in the early days of World War III, guerrillas, mostly children, placed the names of their lost upon the rock. They fought here alone and gave up their lives so that this nation shall not perish from the earth. And that is it for that movie.
Oh, Red Dawn.
Very pro-American, very conservative. I can see why conservatives loved it, especially in '84. Oh my God. Okay,
yeah.
So your score?
I think I'm going to give it an 8. And now I'm kind of mad at myself for not putting it in my rewatch rotation sooner. Because it's, even though it is a little bit dramatic and even though it has kind of soap opera undertones to it, you still care for the characters, all of them.
Yeah.
You're still involved with their story development and their character development, and you still feel the suspense and you feel the sadness and you want to cheer with them when they kill a bunch of people. So it's one of those, like, it still elicits a lot of emotion. So yeah, but I mean, you have to discount for one. I can't believe I'm about to say this because this is one of my biggest pet peeves. But because the villains in this, like all of the soldiers, speak so much, and because they're all doing it in either Spanish or Russian,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of subtitles was driving me bananas. And I'm like, I'd rather they just speak English with a really bad accent. That would be my preference. I hate that, but they had so much dialogue.
Yeah.
That the subtitles were kind of getting in the way. But overall, I like this. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, my score is, as I'm getting older, this was fun to watch as a movie I loved as a kid. Nostalgia fueled a lot of my enjoyment, and that's okay. Again, being older and maybe a little wiser, the plot is silly, but it had just enough realism, and the whole movie took itself seriously, even though a bunch of high school kids took on an entire Russian and Cuban military, even taking down elite commandos. A serious movie with a silly plot and an outlandish delivery was enough to make me enjoy this as a popcorn action adventure fantasy movie. I think it's a classic, and I gave it an 8 too.
Yeah,
a masterpiece, but it's really very good. It's awesome. It's better than really very good. It's awesome. It's a classic.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm actually super impressed with it.
Yeah.
Like, I remember liking it a lot, and I'm so glad I still do.
Yeah, because I will definitely watch it again.
They're the kind of cons that take the shine off of it.
Yeah.
But it's still good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why I liked it originally. Like, it was a fantasy action movie. I was a kid, and here was a movie about kids taking on the enemy. It was like Call of Duty before Call of Duty. And I bet guys and girls who made Call of Duty loved Red Dawn.
Probably, yeah.
Now, if you liked it then, you'll like it now. But I'm saying that nostalgia plays a big part for me. You?
For me, nostalgia didn't play that big of a part because I realized how much of this movie I had forgotten. So, like, I remembered liking that movie, and I remember liking it because it was like just a fun action movie. I, for some reason, thought it had a happy ending. I was wrong.
Yeah.
But I wasn't that sad about it because I was like, oh, but at least, 2 of them made it out alive. And then I was like, shit, is that really all that makes it out alive? And then I kind of went back and I was like, oh, they all died. And it made me sad a little bit. But it's honestly just I didn't think I would like it that much. And I thought nostalgia would have to bridge me through. But it didn't. Like, standing on its own, other than the soap opera kind of moments, the dramatizing of things, like, it was just a really good action movie that also had great character development, and the story moved along. It wasn't a very logical story, but its pace was logical. Like, you were in it. So I was like, oh, this is super good. I'll watch this again just to see Patrick Swayze cry.
If you didn't like it then, or if you hated it, you might appreciate now the intricate way the director tries. No, I'm just kidding. You'll still hate it.
I was like, where the fuck is he going with this? Because if you hated it then, you definitely hate it now.
Congratulations. You just had one of your childhood movie memories vindicated. Or they just eviscerated it. I don't know. This is a generic one-size-fits-all type of ending to the podcast. So thank you for listening, and please join Anna and Jimmy next time for another episode of the I Remember Liking That Movie podcast. If you dare to go back and watch that movie you remember liking.